Welcome back! In today's tutorial we're going to be making a Timon cake from the Lion King. We are starting off with a 6-inch round cake covered in a mixture of Renshaw's lime green and Lincoln green. To make a quick stencil, take some greaseproof paper and a pencil. You just want to draw on some rough jungle leaf shapes. You can trace a leaf from the internet if you don't want to do it freehand. Carefully cut around the pencil line with a scalpel, taking care to not make cuts longer than what's needed. You should be left with the stencils and their centres. Now when doing this, I would highly suggest pinning the stencils in place with acupuncture needles, but I was in a huge rush, and by rush I mean it had to be finished in just a few hours, so I just held it and sprayed it. You will see the stencil lift as the air pushes through the airbrush gun. Hold these parts down with the needles. Spray the inside of the shape with green airbrush colour. I'll leave a link to the brand I use in the description box. Move the stencil around the cake, spraying various leaves. These are just for the background. You can also use the cut out parts of the leaves to make different effects. Cover the board in the same green using the toilet seat method. I'll leave it linked above. It creates a neat bottom edge with very little wastage. Next, you want a traced version of your chosen image. I had Timon in his grass skirt outfit. Make sure it's big enough to fit on the front of the cake. Roll out some light brown sugar paste, leaving it fairly thick. We are going to create depth using various thicknesses, so the main body and head want to be a little chunky, as other parts such as the ears will be more shallow. Place your template on top and just mark out the shape of the body and head and cut it with a scalpel. You want to mark out other details such as eyes, mouth and the darker or lighter patches of fur. Your mouth goes in and it's hollow, so that's what we want to create here. We want to cut out the mouth section of paste to insert a much thinner one. Your mouth and teeth do not extend past your face, which is why we aren't just placing the mouth on top. The inside of the mouth is a burgundy colour, made with mixing red Renshaws with black. Trace around the mouth, remembering to keep it much thinner than the body's paste. Insert the paste inside and adhere it to the sides with a Dresden tool. To help place Timon in the right position and not have his face warped, you can trace just the outline onto the cake with the Dresden tool. Apply water inside that area to help stick him on. In the same way, you want to cut the eyes out so they have a hole to sit in. Then, if it makes it easier, go over your lines a little deeper so you can see where colour changes of the fur occur around the eyes, mouth and chest. Wet the area around the mouth for a lighter brown. You will want to roll this really thin so it doesn't stick out too much. I haven't followed the template, I just cut a strip and followed the shape of the mouth, cutting off the excess inside the mouth. Don't forget his chest too. Do the same around the eyes, this time in a darker brown. Again, I haven't followed the template, just made a shape big enough and trimmed off the excess. Next are the ears. As these are further back on the head, you will want to roll the paste thinner than the main body. This gives the illusion that they are placed behind the cheeks rather than on them. The insides of the ears are a similar colour to the eye fur, and the tops of the ears are a much darker brown. It's looking super freaky, I'm not gonna lie. Let's get his teeth in. Use your template to cut a thin strip of white. Again, make sure the teeth go in the mouth and don't stick out against the depth of the head. Gently draw in some lines to separate the teeth. I don't know if this looks better or worse. For the eyes, roll a ball of white and push it into the holes. Just tap the paste with your finger to ease it up against the inner edges. Use your template to cut his tongue. This is hot pink Renshaw's paste. Add his spiky hair in red, toned down with a little bit of brown. His eyebrows are expressive, so we're going to make these slightly 3D. Roll some dark brown paste into a tapered sausage and stick them across the top of the brown fur patterns. His pupils are just small black balls of paste, and catchlights are tiny balls of white paste. His nose would be one of the closest things to us if he was 3D, so keep it fairly chunky and use your template for sizing and shape. A small thin strip of pale brown paste will create a shine across his nose. Add in some extra detail with the Dresden tool, such as a little nose wrinkle and smile lines. For his Hawaiian lei, mix some Renshaw's hot pink with a little purple to make a nice fuchsia colour. With a wet paintbrush, paint on the trail of the necklace. Each of the strands is made by rolling a teardrop shape and slightly flattening it. Stick these on following the line you painted on. For the topper, I traced his name and then freehanded a fat grub shape around it. You can of course trace one if you want. I had about an hour left to get the cake finished, so foam core to the rescue, no waiting around for a sugar plaque to dry. Just trace around the shape with the Dresden tool to leave an imprint and cut it out with a sharp scalpel. I said a sharp scalpel. If it's slightly blunt, it will drag. So replace the blade on this scalpel, just grab yourself some pliers and pull it upwards. Open up the new blade and attach it with the pliers again. Do not attempt to do it with your fingers, these things are surgically sharp. Slide the blade down and it pops into place, ready to go. To secure the topper to the cake, you'll need some kebab sticks. Insert them at the lowest point which will be touching the cake. In this case, it's the bottom of the grubby lumps and bumps. Trim the sticks down with some wire cutters. The grub in the film is actually orange, but I thought that would be too bright and distract from Timon on the front. So I made a white grub and made the text orange. Dampen the foam core with water or piping gel and cover it with white paste. Fold the paste over the edges and trim off the excess. Score in the lines on the grub with a Dresden tool and water down some orange gel colour just to give the lines a bit of colour and shading. Pop that to one side whilst we work on the lettering. Roll out some orange paste with Tylo added and trace over the name and cut them out. You've seen me do this lots of times now, so I'll just speed it up a little bit. Use your template to help with placement and stick them down with water. If you're careful, you can add the topper straight away. It's great if you're in a rush and don't have time for a sugar plaque to dry. Stick on a tiny black dot for the grub's eye and a catchlight. Little white balls rolled into a teardrop shape create the grub's tiny feelers and feet. To add the flower to Timon's ear, I used hot pink paste and rolled it quite thin. Remember, this will be further back from the front of his face. Roll tiny strips of yellow for stamens and add balls to the end of each one. Add the petals closest to you by overlapping the stamens. Lastly is his arm. This wants to be fairly chunky as it's the closest body part to you. For the last few details, use various shades of green for foliage. Roll large teardrop shapes and flatten them with your hands. Use a Dresden tool to mark in a centre line and pull the paste out from that to make a spiky jungle leaf. Stick this to the cake with water. For spikes of grass, roll out tapered sausages and group them together. Trim the bottom flat and arrange them where you like. continue around the cake, adding various jungle leaves. For vines, roll out a long string of paste and wet the cake at 2 points. Stick the end of the string to one and lower or higher the vine to where you want it before sticking it down to the other point. Using some brown gel colour, water it down so it's very thin and paint around the whites of the eyes to make them stand out more. It has the effect of eyeliner. Also paint around the lettering to make that stand out more and give it some extra detail. The final touch is to add a little shading with the airbrush. I'm just using green straight from the bottle and going around the board, the top edge of the cake, the leaves and the grass. That's it, all done. Just use a layering effect, keeping in mind which pieces may be further back or which might be closer. Hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.